Hello, this is Tim, and I'm with David, who's playing the Dame in the show that we're doing at the moment, which is Dick
Yes.
Whittington. And a while ago, I did a thing called Panto Part One. So this is really Panto Part Two with the Master. You haven't played Noel Coward, have you?
I have.
You have. There you are. So
I
rightfully
did-
called the Master.
I haven't. Well, I have played him because I did a review called Talent to Amuse, one of our own shows years ago, and it was really just a one-nighter which we took to a few other places. But I mean, I've always adored Noel Coward stuff. So yes, I have done a Noel Coward review with all the best songs. Well, I mean, what are the best songs? There's so many to choose from.
It's
I
yeah.
adore Noel Coward.
So I'm moving from Noel Coward to Panto. What do you think are the most important ingredients
of a panto.
Yes.
It's very often a child's first time in a theatre, and it has to be magical. It has to be believable, and they have to be able to be allowed to escape into that world of fantasy and believe totally in it for 2.5 hours.
And World of Chaos.
Yes, totally.
Yes.
And buy into it and quickly accept the conventions and feel safe within that. Mm-hmm. Know that as in the audience they're going to be respected, they're not going to be sent up, but they're going to buy into this crazy madcap world.
Which is bizarrely, I mean, I've taught theatre in bits and pieces, and you often end up with Brecht and Stanislavski, and this is very Brechtian.
Yes, it is. Yes, because you are asking people to buy into a story, and then you are
and influence it,
and you are stepping out of it to make comments to the audience.
And the comments really are led by your character.
I think, to be truthful to the plot, the comedy characters can step out of character, not step out of character, but can interact with the audience to sort of make them feel more included. But I think if you're playing a character in earnest, like Dick or Alice or the romantic leads, you must stay in character, you must play the story, you must make it believable. I think it's only dames and comics, and maybe in this show Captain and Mate, that can slightly step out, but you've got to be careful. You can't send it up. They've got to believe in the story. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing the piece earlier, I was talking about the Commedia dell'arte origins, but I think there's very few of those that are genuinely left. The character I'm playing, the old man, the alderman, I think is directly from Commedia.
Yes,
he's one of the Vecchi.
Yes.
I'm not sure whether you are.
I'm not, to be honest with you.
You're not really. You're an English understanding of Commedia.
Yes.
You're the bit where music hall invades.
Yes.
Commedia.
You're right, actually. Music hall, especially. When
the great Dan Leno.
Yes, when pantomime became influenced by music hall, you would get the music hall stars appearing in Panto, doing their set pieces, doing their set act, and people say, we have names and stars in Panto. Well, I mean, that's gone on for years and years, that you would get people coming in and doing their set routines. It's variety. It's the last vestige we have of variety.
And the Crossroads kudos thing has really revived that in Trumps, hasn't it?
Well, I hope so, because
almost to the detriment of the story.
yes, it's a fine line. You've got to have the story that is easy to follow and easy to see, but within that, if you've got speciality acts and variety acts that are in there to do what they do well, then go with it. I mean, I try to put as many little snippets as I can in from the great dames that were their set pieces. I mean, in this show I'm doing the George Lacey rant in Act 2.
Ah, yes.
Which is just something George Lacey used to do.
This is Fanny and
this is
Annie and...
Yes, this is... he'd just go off on a tangent for 30 seconds and then come back with, oh, if only I could think of something to say. And that is a homage to him. and it's just something I try to put in every year
Yeah, yeah.
if I can.
So where does your Dame come from?
I started doing Dame in '95, and I'd thought the way I was going was to play villain. My first
Yes.
panto in '92 was villain. Then I did 2 years as comic, not very good, I have to say, because I just wasn't that sort of comedy character that can appeal to kids in this sort of streetwise way.
The comic is the person who comes and says, "Hiya,
Yes,
gang."
Yes, Idle Jack, Silly
Yeah.
Billy, all that. Okay, kind of got away with it, but didn't really work for me. And then a dame I was working with that year said, I think it won't be long before you play Dame. And I was very lucky to have the chance to play Mother Goose as my first one. And the lovely producer, the last director from Doctor Who, John Nathan Turner.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yes, John Nathan Turner, yes, lived in Brighton. And he was doing Mother Goose at Chesham.
But Doctor Who was oddly rather pantomime.
Oh, it was, but John was the last.
Particularly with Tom Baker.
Yes,
and and Peter Davison.
John Nathan Turner was that last producer of that old series.
Which I loved.
Yes, it was a gloriously tacky, shall I say? Maybe.
Anarchic, and shamelessly so.
Yeah. So I went to audition for John, and for some reason I read it in a dialect. I read it northern, and he said, no, imagine you're going to a party as David, and you got slightly tiddly, and you're just actually having a good time. And that was the only note I needed to make it work for me. I suddenly thought, that's what you're getting at. So got Mother Goose, baptism by fire, 15 costume changes, all supplied by myself. But my God, it gave me a good grounding. I learnt so much on that show.
Did you fly?
I didn't fly. I went down on hydraulics, went down on trapdoors, did strip routines, did roller skating as well in that one,
Yes.
as I recall. And that really set me on the road, and I've just built on that ever since.
Mother Goose was the first panto, the first show I think I ever saw.
Really?
But I'm not sure, because I have a memory of seeing Thingamy at the London Palladium in Dick Whittington.
John in...
No, not John. Oh, I've seen John Inman many times, and it's wonderful. I saw him when he came back and did Babes in the Wood at the Palladium.
So who was your first dame you saw?
I don't remember my first dame, and I've always been slightly frightened of dames. I remember when I first saw you in full costume, I thought, oh my goodness, and a little bit of that fear comes back.
I think that's an interesting point. You've got to be very careful. A lot of dame makeup, and I know I'm putting on war paint now, but when it's powdered down, it doesn't look quite so frightening. But you can't. You've got to make the kids believe it's a kindly mum.
Yes.
A man.
So Idle Jack in this performance is your son.
Yes, he is.
Very
And
much.
I think the best comic dame relationships work when it's
And we have a sort of relationship as well, which is
nice, because you don't normally get that with an older man in Panto. But I think it's a good thing that the dame should bag off with the older man. I think it's...
Well, she often does anyway, but
Yes.
but I think in our production, it's almost implicit in the first scene, isn't it?
Yes.
That we're both sort of missing. We're missing ships in the night.
True. But yeah, I think you've got to be very careful that you don't make dame makeup or your persona frightened to kids. It's got to be warm. It's got to be welcoming. My opening spot I do is I use so much of Terry Scott's material, where you see the audience and then you think, hello, you're here. I didn't know you were coming. You're here. There you are. Hello. And you welcome them. They see the love in your eyes, and you welcome them. And
Yes, it's a little bit like the opening number in Edwin Drood.
Edwin Drood.
Edwin Drood. It's
God,
not
yes.
here we are. It's here you are.
Yes.
There you are is I think the number.
It is.
And
yes.
it's what you do. There you are. And I'm real.
I remember that. I wish I'd seen it. It had Lulu and Ernie Wise in it.
Ernie
originally,
Wise
didn't
was
it?
spectacular.
Oh,
Quite spectacular.
Never saw it. We booked for it. But
In the
Savoy. Yes, and it came off. Yeah.
Yes. They did a little piece on Wogan,
Yes.
which I think is still available.
It is, I've got it.
Ah, there you are, you see.
Because the guy that wrote it also wrote the Pina Colada advert tune.
No.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. Rupert Holmes, I think it is. Yeah.
And and of course that is very much in the tradition of pantomime as well, getting the audience to vote for the outcome of the show.
Yeah. I wish to God I'd seen it.
And so what about the villain? As you played a villain as well, tell me about the villain.
Okay, but I loved playing villain because
I started off playing villains. I was playing pantomime villains in Shakespeare. I can claim a fame for having got booed in Greek theatre in Greece. So, or hissed, I think. I think.
well, I like villain because you can make it lovable, but nasty, and also it's a little bit maybe egotistical. You're very self-contained as villain.
Yes.
You do your stuff. You go off, normally on the front cloth. I went back to doing villain when I was doing adult Panto in Brighton, because the shows weren't brilliant, I'll be honest. So I found villain a good way of getting back into those. I suppose the cross between villain and dame is ugly sister, which I have done.
The tearing up of the
Yes.
of the invitation.
Yeah, which I wouldn't be averse to doing again. I've done it twice now. Once.
Well, in fact, Cinderella has a lot of nastiness running through it. Cinder herself is quite nasty to Buttons.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, she is actually. When he's pledged his devotion to
Yes.
her, and she says, "Oh, I can only love you as a friend." You think, what a cow.
Yes, just. But the all the sort of growls and things which you get with the villain, it's great fun, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And waiting for that audience participation. In fact, you get more audience participation possibly as the villain than you do as the dame.
I think you do, and you can play them perfectly.
Yes.
It really is balancing on a knife edge with playing villain. You can whip them up in the frenzy, and then you can ride out those boos. You can't top them once they're shouting at you. Don't even bother.
Yeah.
If you get an audience that's really shouting at you, just ride through the lines. But if you get one that can be subdued, then you're on to a winner. And you can be eloquent, you can be very clever with your wordplay as well. I like villain.
You see, so going from, I've not been on stage for years, but going from villain to doing old man is essentially villain light. I think it's certainly from the commedia tradition. The veggies, stingy and
Yes.
and stingy and slightly sort of lost.
Yeah.
The lost bit is lovable. The stingy bit is quite villainous.
Yeah.
And I find I'm emphasising the lost bit a lot.
Yes.
Because I want to be nicer rather than more villainous. But
Yes.
the villainous thing is there; it lies underneath it, which is quite a nice support.
Yes.
But I think the villainous stuff is there in the Panto Dame as well.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
She's got an edge to her.
She doesn't accept any nonsense.
I mean, so how far away from drag is Panto Dame?
Now this is interesting because I've always said, and Jack Tripp always said, it should never be drag.
Yeah.
But I actually did it the other way round. I'd moved to Brighton, saw some of the great drag acts in Brighton, Phil Starr, particularly. Phil Starr, I learnt so much from. Maisie Trolette, Dave Lynn, Lola Lasagna, the Dockyard Doris, these brilliant old style pub drag acts that could tell.
Who were vicious.
They weren't.
Well,
they could be, but they showed you how to tell a gag because they came from the music hall tradition. Certainly Phil Starr and Dockyard Doris knew how to tell a gag from a music hall point of view.
Yes.
And it was a masterclass in telling a story.
Well, you did it yesterday when my glasses fell off.
Oh yes.
You put the line out. The audience got it before you'd even finished the line.
Yes.
Thought,
You made a
you've got-
spectacle of yourself.
I thought, yes, ride that moment. and that thing of letting the audience control that moment.
Yes.
That really is part of that sort of drag
Yes.
tradition, isn't it?
Yeah, and I can honestly say...
And I think that comes from Max Miller, who of course is one of your Brighton people.
Yes, I used to use a Max Miller gag in my opener. Now we're going to have a lovely time today, so just relax and enjoy yourselves. All the fellas in the audience, undo your coats and shirts and just lie back. Ladies, just the best you can. I think that was in last year at Bognor, but we had to reduce for time this year, obviously.
Yes.
But yeah, going back to your question about drag, it shouldn't be drag, but I think the drag influence has crept in a lot more. And you've got to be so careful with makeup. It can't be frightening for the kids.
Yeah.
I think a lot of dames nowadays are adopting a drag makeup, which can be scary if you get them on stage with you to do a song sheet. I haven't done song sheet that much as Dame, but when you do, you can't be towering over them in this terrifying makeup. And something Danny LaRue always did, he would kneel down beside them with the microphone to interview them. So
I never saw Danny LaRue as Dame. I know he did it many times actually.
He played he'd never be old and homely, shall we say.
No.
He was always...
It was a very glamorous Dame.
Yes, it was. Even Mother Goose was supposed to go from old and facially challenged to young and beautiful. I mean, he'd never make himself look grotesque, but he would always kneel down with the children, turn his back on the audience, and interview the kids. John Inman did the same.
Yes, I saw John Inman doing it.
He was brilliant as
Beautiful,
doing
beautiful.
sheet.
And the other thing I like about John Inman's Dame was his strip routine.
Oh God, yes.
Which you've done, haven't you?
Yes, I the washing line.
Yes.
I did it in that first Mother Goose, and it wasn't planned particularly well because the management said we'll provide the strip costume, and the crux of the John Inman strip is you unwind the washing from you, twirl around the stage, so there's this huge washing line, and then you say, hasn't it been a shocking day for drying? And that's the tagline. But they provided me with real washing, a rope, and it was too bulky.
Yes.
The audience could see where it was coming from, and it looked too bulky. The day before we opened with that Mother Goose, there was a tribute to John on television, and we saw how it should be done from the waist.
Yes.
Lightweight washing, silk stuff so that it didn't show.
Absolutely.
So the first time I did with a Twanky, I had a skirt and full costume made. Then the skirt ripped off, and I did the same thing. But the best strip is I think the Terry Scott one, where he appears in a dressing gown, very seductively, and then goes into the stripper routine. And off comes bloomers, off comes tops, there's a little bit of washing line come off, and then within a second he walks behind the screen, and in a nanosecond he's in a negligee. And obviously there's someone behind the screen, you walk into the nightie, you hold it behind you, and you collapse on the bed. That's the best strip to my knowledge.
Yes, yes, wonderful, wonderful. And what's your favourite point in the show we're doing?
In this show,
obviously the moment where we have eye contact.
Of course.
In the final scene, and I propose to you. But other than that,
I quite like the rocking galley scene with the water.
yes,
It could have gone a little bit further. It should have been more anarchic. But because of logistics and microphones, it couldn't be. But I quite like that one. The scenes with my son.
yes, the scenes. That is really the only scene you've got together.
Yes,
isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas last year with Jack the Beanstalk, there was a lot of scenes with the two sons, and I think it's important to stress the family connection with Dame and her family.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
But it's been an absolute blast, this one, it really has. It's a tricky one to get right, but we got there, and it's been a joy.
No, thank you very much. David Rumelle.
Thank you.
Have I got your name pronounced
You have
correctly?
indeed, yes.
And this is your 36th?
I think it
56.
it's about 36th Dame.
Dame.
No, 36th pantomime, but I think it's about something like 27th Dame.
It's quite an achievement.
Thank you.
Thank
well,
you.
Here's to next year.
Well, I hope we've opened some sort of insight into the depth of Panto. So your job is to come to Panto. You might just get to see the last one we're doing today. Otherwise, you have to come next year. Yeah. Have fun.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye bye.